the wrecking yard. I met my true love down in the wrecking yard. I met my true love called a wreck Chevrolet, which I see every day.
Hi, welcome to another episode of The Wrecking Yard. My name is Tony. I'm your host, the Big Cheese, the head honcho around here. I get the credit, I get the blame. Today's podcast, I have to make some apologies beforehand because I think it's going to end up becoming my red-headed stepchild as far as the podcasts are concerned. And it's not because it's not good, but there are some audio issues that I have to explain. When I take my equipment to wherever it is that I'm talking to someone, I tend to let them guide me to where they'd like me to set up. I figure the more comfortable they are, the more they're going to be willing to talk and relax and just have a good conversation. So I recently went to Berkeley to visit the members of MX-80 Sound, and we ended up in the backyard. So this is my first outside podcast, and well, frankly, it does have some problems that you would expect from a podcast recorded outdoors. First, there was some construction going on next door, so there's some hammering in the background, some sawing in the background, and always it seems at just about the worst time. Also, I made it a point, as I've been doing lately, to try to stay on the mic, so my voice comes through loud and clear. Unfortunately, the other three fellows had alternate lengths that they were sitting from the microphone, and I didn't really notice until it was too late. Actually, I didn't even really notice until I got home and listened to this, but most of the time they sound fine, if a little bit faint. Unfortunately, Rich Stim seemed to be sitting further away from the mic, and his voice is a little soft anyway, so when he talks, you're probably going to have to turn up the volume. I'm sorry about that. In the future, I'm going to endeavor to make people sit closer to their microphones, but for now, this is what I got. The podcast also doubled as a backyard barbecue, so we have, during the podcast, several people coming in and out of the back gate or the front door, saying hello, introducing themselves, blah, 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 blah. So the podcast actually sounds more like the recording of a party more than anything else. And again, it was a good podcast, really funny. I learned some stuff. I just want to let you know about the audio issues. Ahead of time, there you go. I promise not to let it happen again. I will do my best to make sure people sit the proper distance from the mic, but I think that should not stop you from enjoying this lively conversation with the members of MX-80 Sound, a band that I always considered loud at any volume. Once again, I'd like to thank you for listening, and I'd like to encourage you to go to the website and maybe make a donation to make it possible for me to make some more road trips. I'm actually taking another road trip next week, so there will be another hiatus here, but I'll be putting up some podcasts before I leave, which should keep you busy while I'm gone. So now, it's on to my talk with MX-80 Sound. All right, we are going now. So
I was trying to tell you.
Honestly, it doesn't matter.
It's been a few days.
Well, for me, it's been almost a week. So
Help yourself whenever.
yeah, I don't think it'll affect my interviewing skills too much. Yep. Well, one thing I noticed, I was just spent the last week in L.A. there are dispensaries literally on every corner, like Starbucks there.
Yeah.
But I don't see hardly any of them here. Are they hidden?
Not yet.
Well, and to get anything permitted in Berkeley is a long haul. So they just finally started opening it up. I think there were 4 of them, and now there's 6, and then there's a couple more that just got authorized. Amoeba Music, one of our drummers owns Amoeba Music. They finally got their license after.
Oh, they're going to sell it at Amoeba?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, good for them.
Yeah. Huh?
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
They'll finally make a profit.
Yeah, because they couldn't stay open otherwise. Probably. I mean, like
Selling
it's like,
physical media now. Is,
I know.
These kids don't buy music today, do they?
No, they don't. They really don't. But it's funny because, I mean, record stores back in my day, they paid their bills with accessories, bongs and
Right,
pipes and
exactly.
papers
Yeah,
and
right.
whatnot.
Right.
Now they're just going
Posters.
on to the real thing. And when I had a video store, we paid our bills with porn.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, and it was bad too because I don't know if you knew much about the record stores that we had, but we started a video store where we intentionally tried to get things that nobody else in town had.
Right.
So like when they put out like 10 Kurosawa films or a bunch of Ozu or whatever, we'd go, oh man, we got to get all those, and they were like $100 a piece.
Right.
That we were getting back $3 at a time.
Worth every penny.
Well, they are, but nobody in Indianapolis wanted to see them except for us.
Right.
And so we ended up having this huge stock of Boonwell, and nobody cared.
Was this
So
on VHS?
yes, so I mean, we had to have basically porn paid for the good
Art.
stuff. Exactly, and
that makes sense.
yeah, retail businesses learn that, and I'll tell you, if I still had a record store and I was allowed to sell pot, I'd still have a record store.
Right.
So
And that's exactly what they're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
just making it so it's a going concern.
right, and it also kind of makes it like a one-stop shop too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I mean, because people are still buying vinyl, right,
It's
to a certain
the
degree.
tangibility, and people will go to a place and actually participate in old school retail, i.e., exactly face to face with someone in real time,
Uh-huh.
rather than push some buttons around on their computer.
It'd be nice if they had a listening room
Right.
in between the two. That
Oh,
would be great. You just
never-
buy your
People
strawberry
would never
kush.
fucking leave.
Serve
Well,
wine.
That's what I had. I bought off in Oolitic in Bedford, Indiana. They had a Bridwell's. They had an appliance store.
Uh-huh.
They had a really nice 45 collection. So that's where I got all my Yardbirds,
Right.
Oh,
all my stuff, and they had a little record player, so you could and Mr. Bridwell would say, okay, that's all right, boys, that's enough.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
That's the
Oh, I remember going to the record store in Flint, man, and just listening for hours and then buying.
Wait, I want to know.
Oh, you want to know?
well, for me anyway, I got a lot of my records from my uncle.
You want it up?
He, like I told you, he would occasionally just show up and he'd go, here, have some records, and I was 7, 8, 9 maybe, and I'm not sure how much I was going to understand Fever Tree or Lothar and the Hand People or the Peanut Conspiracy or any of that stuff, but it was cool because I just had some records. And like I told him, there was a copy of Having a Rave Up with the Yardbirds in there, which I never could figure out why he gave that one away.
Yeah.
Because that's a really good record, But I think by this point he had already kind of discovered jazz and Captain Beefheart and Sun Ra, and I think he was kind of going off in a different direction, kind of like like what I did when I get to that night that I told you about.
Yes.
So,
Tell us again.
Well, I'm going to get there. I want to
All
get there.
right.
We should probably start at the beginning. Now, all 3 of you are not from Indiana, right?
No, I am.
You are?
I was born and raised in Oolitic, Indiana.
And you're from
Flint, Michigan.
Flint and... Oh, really? Long Island?
Yeah.
I've spent some time there. I'll be dogged. Okay, and then you all, I assume, all met at IU, right?
Right.
Now, when you met, a lot of people I talk to who play music together usually meet because they have similar musical interests. Is this what happened? Did somebody notice somebody with an Ornette Coleman T-shirt and go, hey, or did you guys just sort of naturally bump into each other?
Kind of T-shirts back then.
No. Well, the interesting story is that the first day I moved to Indiana University, I I came with my mother and father with my belongings, and I moved into Wilkie Quad. And so I'm going in, moving my shit in with my parents, and the door opens, and who comes out but Dale. And I asked him directions to something, and he told me. So the first person I met out of 60,000 students was Dale, who turned out to be my best friend.
Hard cheese, old bloke.
Going, that shows you what an unlucky motherfucker I am. So Wilkie Quad at that time in
66.
68. And it was the artist colony. It's where all the harpsichord majors, jazz guys, classical musicians, painters. It was just a 11-story quadrangle of artistic creeps.
Now, is this the same as Wilkie South?
Yes.
Or is that,
Wilkie South
Okay.
is women's. Wilkie.
now that song makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
thought it was the other way around. Are you rolling?
I was waiting for you to get back.
Yeah, so let everybody
Yeah.
say hi.
I was going to let the dust settle a little. Okay, so,
So are we back on?
yeah, okay, so we're back on. So we're at college. You two have met. And so I assume you two were both listening to around the same things at the same time? Like music?
Really, no. I was in the music school. Bruce
Uh-huh.
was in art school. And I was listening mostly to classical music. But of course rock and roll had seeped in, and
Can I assume Beatles was pretty much the...
all of that stuff. But I mean, like, I grew up on AM radio.
Yeah, same as me.
Yeah, so I mean, like, all of that stuff, and just how you grow from there, how you branch out from there.
Yeah, it's hard to explain to people, but for about 3 or 4 years, AM radio was really good. It was fun. You're on your way to Grandma's house, and you hear the Kinks and the Who and whoever, and
Well, you're a little younger than me.
yeah, I was born in '61.
We were hearing Marvin Gaye and Aretha, and the Beach Boys were still going then, and
I didn't like the Beach Boys when I was a kid. I didn't like the Beach Boys till I was like in my 30s.
still have issues with them.
Sure, I do too, but yeah, I got on some of that stuff. I didn't like Led Zeppelin until I was almost 30.
Would you agree, Bruce, though, that like Zappa and Beefheart sort of like set a some sort of change in direction?
Well, probably the first two groups that were a gateway into music other than rock. And Zappa, of course, with classical, because he was always a huge Perez advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And Beefheart just basically was a UFO that landed.
Yeah.
That you had to investigate to figure out what it was.
Yeah. Well, I remember I used to go through my uncle's record collection just because he had so many, and I was like, wow, look at all these records. And Trap Mask Replica scared the shit out of me. That thing popped up, and I was like, ugh! And I just put it back. I don't ever want to see that again.
Well, I remember Dale found it out and said, you got to listen to this. This is like alien.
Well, that was the worst
and
part.
We both listened to it, and it was, we both loved it at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I avoided it until someone said, you got to listen to this. I was like, oh, that would entail me looking at it again. And, the more I thought about it, I mean, does anybody know how long did that photo shoot go on? That the inside of that fish head must have ended up smelling really horrible.
Yeah.
And did he go home with, like, fish face? Like, his whole face smelled like an old dead fish? Oh,
I got to Google that. Hold on a second.
That cover still kind of bugs me a little bit. I mean, I love the record.
What happened?
Yeah.
I just got a big book about this thick that Drumbo wrote on his experiences with Beefheart, and it goes through that photo shoot, and it was pretty repulsive.
I'm sure.
Yeah, pre-Photoshop.
Now, is he one of the band members that has a more positive or negative viewpoint? Because I know some of them were
tortured by it, but at the same time, it's one of the greatest experiences of his life.
Right.
And, he realizes he was basically dealing with a stone genius, and a guy that was manipulative and not an altogether great guy.
That's what I understood. I was reading his biography when he died.
He was a great manipulator.
Yeah,
and
that's what everyone said.
And he ran that groove like a cult. But they went for it, and that's how those things. I mean, when I started MX-80, I was keeping that in mind without being the asshole.
Right.
I was trying to say, if I could get these guys...
Nice try.
But they still talk to you, so I'm saying you reached at least some degree of success.
Yeah.
Bruce has tricked us into not knowing that we're a part of a cult.
But the work ethic, you know, I just wanted MX to have the same work that the Magic Band did. They just rehearse
Just
relentlessly.
maybe minus the government cheese.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the story I kept hearing. They said they felt like they were locked in this house, except like one guy a month would be relegated to going to get the cheese.
Yeah.
Government cheese day, you want to go get that? You know, and he'd go get it. And it just sounded horrible. Okay, so the two of you have decided at this point that you're going to start a band. Whose idea was it initially?
No. I played in a band called
Screaming Gypsy Bandits.
Mrs. Seaman Sound Band.
Mrs. Seaman Sound Band.
They had Michael Brecker in it. There was a bunch of jazz guys that were living in Wilkie, and they wanted to start a rock band, like a lot of jazz guys were getting into rock at that point. And I happened to be their only guitar player in the quad, so I was not at their level at all. I had to really fake it. One of my strengths was they were jazz guys, so they wrote everything out. And since I had played piano and trumpet right before I switched to guitar, I could read music. So they would write these tunes out, and we did a lot of copies, like Light My Fire and Lady Madonna with really intricate horn arrangements and stuff. So they would set these charts in front of me, and fortunately I could read. So I just got in there, but it was a great education, you know, because people like Michael Brecker were playing at such a high level at this point that I had to scramble. It was a great education. And then after Mrs. Seaman Sound Band, a couple of the members, one of them being me, morphed into a band called the Screaming Gypsy Bandits that were led by Mark Bingham, who later, of course, produced a number of MX-80 recordings. So a lot of musicians went through that band. Dale was in the band, the versions of it. We were the big cheese on campus. You know.
Was there much of a scene at that time?
Oh yeah, it was the '60s. You know, there was stuff going on, dormitory dances, outdoor gigs when the weather was good.
We used to dress up and do big-time wrestling exhibitions in between the sets.
It was kind of theatrical. We kind of caught that Zappa thing, you know.
Yeah.
So we
He sang Willie the Pimp.
They sang Willie the Pimp.
We had basically, it was a great aggregation. We had a 300-pound drummer, a trumpet player that was about 4'10" and 80 pounds, and
Mark Dresser,
a big goofy bass player, and Dale would dress up like some wrestler, so we would throw
Ahmed the Arrogant.
Ahmed the Arrogant. So it was kind of theatrical, and it was kind of free form, a lot of improvisation going on. But so those two bands were kind of the big bands on campus for about 4, maybe 5 years. And I played in, and then I decided I wanted to start something on my own, and that was around '74, and that's when I started going over to Dale's almost nightly and jamming with him. And then we added Jeff Armour, and we were experimental kind of improv trio. And then I played. Rich had a band called China Boys, and he asked me to play on it, and Dave Mahoney played with China Boys. So when I recorded with them, I thought those two guys were pretty interesting. So just filled in the band, after doing that recording. And then we were kind of a vocal band, a vocal pop band.
Right. Now this was before or after the two drummer lineup.
We started with Jeff, and then Kevin joined, and then I asked Dave Mahoney. So at one point we had 3 drummers, So we had 2 drum sets and percussion, and they would trade off. And we did that for a few months, and then Kevin decided he wanted to go to New York and pursue his painting career, so that was the lineup, and that's how that came to be.
Right. Now, the 2-drum lineup did have one song on a compilation record called Bloomington 1, right?
Spoon Fight, yeah.
Right.
Spoon Fight.
Right.
And that was with Kevin. That was before Rich and Dave. So that was the only recording of that particular version of the band.
Now, how did you run into my uncle? Did he show up for a
We were
band
both
ad?
painters.
Or?
We were both painters.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I was a painter. Kevin was a painter, and Kevin, as you know, is just almost guileless in his innocence. You know, if he's interested in somebody, he'll just go up to him and talk to him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, he can do that easily.
Yeah.
There are some people that can do that.
Yeah, and he's really brilliant at that. That's why he knows so many interesting people. That's why he's Terrence Stamp's best friend, and he knows all kinds of people that you wouldn't know unless you had that. Unless you had that skill, social skill.
Oh yeah, I mean every time I go out there, it's like, you know, hey, I'm going to Chris Stamp's for dinner.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh okay, you know, and or whoever, you know, and he said, oh, you know, okay, you want to help take Jay's drums over to the other side of town since you have a car? I'm like, sure, okay, you know. So yeah, and I just sort of like peripherally meet these people. So
You should explain to your listeners that the sounds they're hearing, the chimes, the motorcycle, the brakes, the hammering, and the saw are not ambient sounds that we've added. Let them know that it's really happening here in real time. It's analog.
I don't think anybody would believe me if I told them that I added on hammering sounds. So,
It'd be kind of cool for Bruce.
well, at the beginning of each one, I always explain if there's any weirdness going on. I try to explain it. When I interviewed Bill Levin, he was smoking a joint the whole time, and I had to edit out as much of it as I could, but he still was like, and then after that podcast, I just decided I don't care anymore. So it doesn't matter.
Well, the
But
chimes will give it like a musical flavor.
yeah, that's nice. It'll people will think I'm, you know, changing stations or something. But yeah, a little extraneous noise. It doesn't really bother me. Although it'd be great if that dude would stop hammering.
The ambient sounds of the environment seems to have taken over here.
Yeah.
It can only go till 10.
Well, we're not peeking out too bad or anything, so it's all right. Okay, so anyway, so
Well, listen back and see if it's too disconcerting. We can.
Oh no, it's fine. I listened to it before when we got all that. But anyway, I guess now would be the time for me to tell you what I told him earlier, and that is that you know I have this feeling that there are days in your life that after you live them, the rest of the days that come after it are going to be different because of whatever it is that you experienced or did or whatever. And you guys were responsible for one of those days for me, and I don't assume that you know it. And I told him this earlier. My uncle, I don't know if he had already moved to New York and had come back to get some stuff, or I don't know if he had just gone out to look for an apartment and had come back, or whatever. But anyway, he was going to Bloomington, and I was staying with my grandparents down in Brown County, which I spent my summers down there a lot. And he says, hey, you want to go to Bloomington with me? And I was like, well, what would I do there? You know, I was only 13, maybe 14. And he says, well, I'll drop you off at Ozarka Records while I go do what I'm doing. And I was like, well, what's that? And he goes, it's a used record store. Well, I had never heard of a used record store before. And like I was telling Dale, my parents were incredibly cheap. They would not buy me albums for any amount of begging whatsoever. I could get a couple of 45s here and there, but if I had a nickel for every time I heard my mom or dad say, albums are $5, that's way too much. And there was a lot of stuff I wanted to hear, but I wasn't hearing it because I didn't know people that had albums, and I wasn't getting the ones that I wanted. And my uncle says, oh yeah, you can trade in your old albums, they give you credit, and they sell them back for $1 or $2. And I'm like, well, albums for $1 or $2, really? So I grabbed a stack of stuff that I figured I could live without. And he dropped me off there, and I got a nice amount of credit. And this is how important that day is. I can remember all 4 records that I bought. Kiss, Dress to Kill, Don't Judge Me, Blue Oyster Cult's On Your Feet or On Your Knees, Tyranny and Mutation, and The Who, Meaty, Beaty, Big and Bouncy. So these were all things I'd been wanting to hear, and my uncle takes me out to dinner or whatever, and then he says, hey, let's go watch my old band practice. And I'm like, okay. Now, Dale said I was in your house, right? And this was the first time I'd ever been in the same room with musical instruments. I mean, we knew a guy who played accordion once. and my uncle had a drum set in his bedroom, but I was not allowed to go near it. So, I'm looking around, and I'm like going, oh, that guitar's only got 4 strings on it. Oh, look at that. Look at that. You know, it was just totally foreign to me. And then when you started playing, of course, I mean, at that time, I'm listening to, like, you know, what I bought, Elton John, Bachman Turner Overdrive, you know, whatever was fairly popular, 13-year-old kids at the time. And I just remember it sounding like I'd stuck my head in a jet engine. And I was just sitting there going like, wow, you know, I don't think I would normally like this, but it's so loud that it's kind of likable, like in the same room. And then there was a copy of Hollywood Babylon on the coffee table. So I ended up reading that entire book, because we stayed for the whole practice. I read the entire book of Hollywood Babylon, which freaked me out no end. I mean, I'm going, he did what with that bottle? What? And by the time I'm done with it, you guys were done playing, and I had just had, like, my entire world was like cracked open in one day, you know?
It was an assault.
Yeah, and it was after that, you know, and my uncle told me, I don't know if he saw them when he was out there or something, but he goes, hey, look, he says, there's this band, they're called the Ramones. If you ever see an album, just go ahead and buy it, because you'll probably like it. And I'm like, okay, sure. And it was a long time before that album came out. Like, it was almost a year. So he must have seen them early or heard about them when he was moving his stuff over there or something. And he never really even liked them that much. He just thought I would. And yeah, he was right. I went to the beauty shop with my mom, and it was near my birthday, so I had $5. And I saw it on the wall, and I'm like, oh, hey, there's that album he said I should buy. Oh, okay, fine, I'll get it, whatever. And I gave the guy, it was $4.81 plus tax, which made it $5 even, and I don't know why I remember this stuff. But anyway, so I take it home, and I put it on, and I'm going, that's all right, okay. And the second song comes on, and I'm going, well, that sounds a hell of a lot like that first song. I wonder if this is a defective copy. I wonder if I got like one that's got the same song twice on it. And then I realized that the lyrics are different. I'm like, oh, okay, that's different. And I got to the third song. And by the time it was over, I was jumping up and down on my bed. And that was kind of another one of those days. So, yeah. And all of a sudden, I'm looking down, and I've got, like, you know, welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to need that anymore. You know, and I ended up getting rid of like half of my record collection within a week. I think because all of a sudden nothing sounded that interesting to me.
Right.
You know, and then it was like sort of that Oasis disc. There was no others really like it. All the Stooges records were out of print. You couldn't find those. I couldn't anyway. So it was kind of a slow process for me. And I don't even mean to lump you guys in with the whole punk thing or anything. But it seems to me that you were sort of accidentally on the peripherals of it just because of timing. Would that be correct?
Timing, and I think the fact that we started the band with people of various skill levels, that it gave us a certain rawness that kind of made sense with Punk New Wave.
Right.
And I think we had that kind of energy. You know, that one of the big things for me, I don't know if you remember, there was a magazine called Rock Scene, which covered the New York scene.
Yeah, I get it every month.
So I would get it and read it religiously. And so I knew about Television, Suicide, and the Ramones way before you could hear them.
That was my case too.
You kind of fantasize this scene in New York, and there's all these people with weird haircuts and uniforms and different approaches. I wonder, and it just made my imagination go crazy, and I think that gave energy to MX-82 because I wanted to be a part of what my imagination was creating in conjunction with this magazine. And you know, Rock Scene, if you go back and talk to a lot of people, that magazine stirred a lot of people up and clued them into what was going to happen visually before you ever heard it sonically.
Right. And also, they used to say that that surf records back in the early '60s sold best in the Midwest where there was no surf.
Right.
And it's the same with rock scene. I'd look at this stuff,
Some of the best surf musicians come from the Midwest.
Yeah, the Trash Man.
I'm a huge advocate of surf guitar, and I think if you explore MX-80 a lot, you'll hear aspects of that in my playing. But and I still write surf tunes. I got a little band called Rattle Trap, a little power trio, and it's kind of a surf billy instrumental group.
Huh.
So kind of exploring my childhood.
I don't know if you know this or not, but all of those rock scenes are online now.
Are they?
Yeah, there's a website that got all the issues
you
up.
Get it? It actually still exists?
No, all the old issues are right now online. You can even the ads, everything. They're all incomplete.
Yeah.
Because the thing I remember, there weren't really a lot of articles in rock scene. There would be like these 2-page spreads.
Photo essays.
Yeah, like it was the Ramones shopping for a PA system.
Yeah.
And I remember that because there was one square where one of them was inside one of the cabinets, and the caption was, "Hey, I could live in here."
Yeah.
And then there was another, like a month later, they went grocery shopping with the Talking Heads.
Or Debbie Harry at the pizza parlor.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there was no real information.
No.
There was just...
That's why I said it was great, because you could just see it and you could just let your imagination run rampant. Because I always fantasize about New York, and then there's this scene happening, and I'm going, I thought that was pretty inspiring.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for me too. You can imagine, I mean, at my age, I mean, it was not just another city, it was another planet.
Yeah.
It was just, the first time I went to New York was '78, and I'm sure I just walked around with my mouth open, just, this is really it, and I just happened, that was another one of my big weekends where a lot of stuff happened, and Star Wars, I saw Star Wars when it came out, like at some show in Times Square with everybody else who didn't know what they were watching either. That was kind of exciting, and there was just some records coming out. The first Damned album came out while I was there. First Talking Heads single, so I came back home, kind of armed for bear, so to speak. All right, so at what point did you guys decide to record that first EP? Did that? Now I'm not talking about the one, because I know there was one that there was the one that Gulcher did, but he just reprinted it without the book, right?
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but somehow I ended up with a box of those, and I don't know how I got them. And I would give them away to people, and it would give me incredible street cred. I gave one of those to Steve Albini, and he was like, "Oh my God, I've been looking for that for years." And I was like, "Here, have two. I've got a box of them."
Huge MX.
That was back in the day of mail. That's right. Also when this stuff first started, I don't know if it was the same for you, but I had to order records out of the back of Trouser Press because I literally had nowhere to buy records near me at all. Did you guys do the same thing?
I mail ordered the first television single. And I'm not sure how I did it, but I also was writing to Crocus Behemoth, or Dave Thomas.
Sure.
And we were trading stuff back and forth, and that's how I got because I would read reviews about Perubu, but there was nowhere to get their stuff.
Right.
And so I would send him our stuff, and he would send his stuff back to me. So.
Yeah, that's another camp of folks I'm hoping to talk to at some point.
Yeah, that's how I got the Debris album.
Yeah. I won't.
To that guy. And that guy had sent his stuff to a company in England that represented Roxy music, and the company wrote back and said, "This is the second worst thing I've ever heard. You should talk to the first worst thing, which is MX-80." So,
really?
Yeah, so that's how we traded.
That's how he wrote to us.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Perubu is again, it was. I hit upon him at a fairly young age, so I wasn't exactly sure what I was listening to. I just knew that it sounded good after I was drunk. And on the second album, on Dub Housing, on the last song on side one is that thing that just sounds like it's a record being squeaked back and forth with some spooky noises in the background.
Yeah.
Well, I inherited a house for like 2 weeks, and me and this buddy who had just graduated from high school, like, oh, we got this big house all to ourselves, cool. And we didn't even bother using the bedrooms. We just put both the beds in the front room, set the stereo up, and I used to go to sleep with my stereo on. So I put that on, and that was the last record. I'm asleep already. The place is dark, and it's going with this. And my friend told me, he said he's never been more tempted in his life. He said it was dark, so he didn't know where the on-off switch was, but he said he was this close to pushing the entire fucking stereo off of the table just to make it stop.
Yeah, I love that cut.
I know.
Yeah.
I used to listen to music going to sleep too. I remember one band house I went to sleep listening to Ascension, John Coltrane's Ascension. And one of the guys in the house just turned the power to the entire house off so that wouldn't happen anymore.
Yeah. I can proudly say I've listened to both versions. I remember when the CD came out, I was like, oh, he did it twice? Okay, so, and you put out that first EP yourself, right?
Yeah.
With the book?
Yeah.
And did it sell out? And Bob Richards said, hey, let me...
Barbecue put it out. It was a friend of ours, Fred Cook and Carolyn Payton, kind of had like a little label with it. So it came out on Barbecue originally, right?
I guess technically in the world of record releasing, it was a kind of anomaly because when a record comes out on a label, the label puts it in the catalog, gives it a catalog number, and distributes it. But none of those things happened.
Really?
What really happened was, to give it some legitimacy, I borrowed the Barbecue label and called up the owner and said, is it okay if I use the logo? And, we call it Barbecue. And he said, Freddie Cook. And I'm pretty sure he said, yeah. And then we got into a dispute later after it sort of got some notoriety as to like, but we never signed any contract with Barbecue. It was all ours, all paid for by ourselves.
Right. Well, then how did it end up becoming a Gulcher release?
Because Bob was an entrepreneur, Bob Richard, and he was a forward-thinking kind of creative guy. He was the first person in Indiana who had an imported car, a Datsun.
Really?
Yeah, that I recall. I'd never ridden in one. And he wanted it for his label. He wanted content for his label, and he was happy with us. And thought it could sell. And that part of what you were asking about the punk thing was that it's true that we weren't punk, but punk and new wave and all that stuff gave birth to a new distribution network, which Bob was part of.
Right.
And so it made it easier to get the stuff out to the people who wanted to hear it, to adventurous listeners.
Right. Well, the other thing too, along the same point is, and I've told people that back then it seemed like punk was a wider umbrella than it currently is now.
It definitely was when it started.
Yeah, because I mean, there. I don't remember, you necessarily having to have a skinny tie or a leather jacket or this or that or whatever to qualify for just being, a little off the beaten track. Whereas it seemed like as the '80s tread on, that umbrella just kept getting smaller and smaller.
Well, it started out as attitude, but then it turned into a musical
right.
genre.
I agree completely. It definitely was attitude. I mean, when I started listening to that sort of stuff, my parents were just like shaking their head, going like, "What in the?" My mom used to do an imitation of me buying records, and she'd do this for party guests. We have like guests over. My mom would go, "Hey, watch this. This is how my son buys records. Watch this," and she'd pick one up and she'd go, "Huh? I've never heard of them. They don't have any songs on the radio. They look like drug addicts. I'll take it." and my mom used to do this at parties. So,
Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, now around this time, was there a certain point where you just said, Bloomington just isn't where we should be, or did one person decide to move west and everybody else followed? How did the westward migration handle, or what? How did the westward migration happen?
We were probably looking for an excuse to get out, and I think one of the record labels kind of encouraged us to move to a more sophisticated larger urban population.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't remember. Maybe it was Island. Maybe it was
Yeah, I think it was Iowa.
or Bronze or whoever.
We had done a record with Island because of a guy named Howard Thompson who was there.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a one-off, and he managed to get us an offer. But then he moved to Bronze, which was a new label, which their main act was Uriah Heep.
I was going to say Uriah Heep.
Yeah. And him and his partner, or his boss, made us an offer from there. So we had two offers, and I can't recall, I think it was Bronze wanted us to go to a bigger city, LA and New York. So we decided on San Francisco because we didn't want to go to New York.
New York would be tough, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. It would have been hard. It would have split the band up for sure.
Yeah.
And LA was kind of the opposite bad way for a band to be. So, but San Francisco seemed encouraging and it had that intellectual aspect to it.
And a fairly rich musical history.
Yeah. Although the music was a little more theatrical than I expected.
Mm-hmm. And so you didn't end up on Bronze? Or
No.
did you? You went from Island to Ralph, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, and this is a whole other subject entirely, but now nobody knew who the hell the Residents looked like or anything back then, or at least nobody I knew did. Did you contact them? Did they contact you?
They contacted us, I think. They were looking to expand their label, and they were signing up, attempting to sign up different groups. And we did that sampler with Chrome and Tuxedo Moon, and I think that was kind of like an audition recording.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Tuxedo and MX went for it, and Chrome didn't want to join. So they were expanding, and they were thinking maybe that, ironically enough, that MX was going to be their cash cow because we were a guitar band. They thought maybe we would increase revenue. Of course, we didn't. They sold more records than we did.
Well, they got kind of a lucky break when MTV came along and some of the other various music programming, and there weren't a lot of videos to play, and so they would play what they had.
Yeah.
And the Residents were smart, I think, to make their shorts kind of funny and humorous, so that if somebody went, "Oh, this music's the worst thing I've ever heard," they would still watch it for the comedy.
Yeah.
And I think that was very savvy. I don't know if it was on purpose or not.
I think they were just a little ahead of their time and
Yeah.
taking advantage of the media that existed.
Right. Well, the thing is, I think I might have met them before, but I don't know, because back then, whenever we would go to a city, we would write down whatever record labels were in that city. I would go to them and I'd say, "Hey, look, I work for Marvin Goldstein Publications, and he told me to bring back some stuff to write about." And nobody ever asked twice. They were just like, "Oh, okay, shit, you want some free stuff here?" And they would just hand me a box of whatever it is they had handy. And we went to the Residence, the address that was on the
Grove Street.
I guess, yeah. We walk in, and it was a big warehouse, and the first thing we see is those eyeballs hanging from the ceiling off of bicycle hooks. And we're going, "Oh, man, this is it." And there was some very straight-looking dudes behind a desk there by the door, and they said, "Here, you want some stuff?" We said, "Yeah." They gave us a big box of stuff, and we left. And it didn't even occur to us till after we left. We're like, that might have been the Residents sitting at that table. And thinking about it, it must have. I mean, it must have been, because who else would be hanging out in there?
Hey, we were the Residents once.
Oh, really? How'd that happen?
The Snake Figure show, the actual Residents actually had to be putting on the show, so they gave us eyeballs.
So you got to wear the eyeballs?
Yeah, at the boarding house.
We impersonated the Residents.
Wow. That is impressive. I had no idea. Were they uncomfortable? Were they smelly? Were they heavy?
Yeah. I was beautiful. I'm claustrophobic too, so it wasn't, so it wasn't. But we did it. Took bows for them. We were introduced and did bows from the.
And the eyeballs don't fall off when you lean over?
3 of us impersonating, and the 4th was an actual resident who actually got called up on the stage by Snake Figure and performed a song with him.
Yeah, that sounds like fun.
The boarding house.
Yeah.
Any pictures?
Yeah,
God, I don't know.
I had some pictures backstage.
Do you?
Yeah, the little square photos. I forget what camera that's from.
Instamatic.
Instamatic, yeah.
So so how many records for Ralph was 2 or 3?
We did 2 and a single. Two singles.
All right.
And the comp.
And the comp.
And then you reissued that later on your own. Do you own all that stuff still? Did you not have to sign that stuff over to anybody else?
It reverts after a certain time period, and they were very generous anyway. They weren't, the traditional hoarding, copyright controlled people. We got the island thing back a few years ago, or 3 years ago. We got the actual master.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because sometimes you hear horror stories about bands that sign something. Well, here, how about this? Do you still own that, or does Bob Richard own it?
Oh, we own it.
Okay, wow.
Clear with Bob.
Rich is pretty on top of that.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, I used to actually work for Bob every once in a while. I mean, when I was not the Gizmos roadie, I would put in time at his store sometimes, or do record conventions with him occasionally.
He was cool.
Yeah, he was always really nice to me, but probably for nefarious reasons.
Well, it was a lucky break. It was a lucky break.
He was always cool with me. He never did anything.
Did you see any of their reunion shows recently?
No. I, for whatever reason, every time one came to town, I had something else I had to do that night, and so I missed all of them. And I was mostly familiar with the Gizmos Mach 2. The only ones of the original lineup that I ever met was Ted Nemick. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of the ones from the Gizmos Mach 2 really dislike the Gizmos. I'm sorry, Mach 1 disliked the Gizmos Mach 2 because they don't think, that there should have been a separate Gizmos or whatever politics they have going on between them. So
that's why we just kill anyone we don't like.
Okay, so now, do you run your own label, or does somebody else do that for you?
I guess we don't have an actual label that functions like that stuff. Mm-hmm. But we put label where they ask for that box where it says label when you're doing your CDs. Usually I make something up, or we use one or two. And Dale's had a label for his stuff, Bruce's stuff. But the last few things have actually come out on other labels. We had 2 vinyl reissues and 1 new thing, and they're all on 2 different labels. So I'm not really sure what the label does anymore.
Things are just so different
really
now.
Need them too much, especially if you're not a big seller. I think if you're selling a lot, it's really helpful.
Well, I recently just saw something where I think it was somebody in Fleetwood Mac said we can't afford to make an album anymore because we won't sell enough to make our money back.
Huh.
I mean, has it really come to that point, do you think?
I think they can afford to make an album. I think there's somehow getting it to all the people they want to get it to must cost.
But they can't afford to make it in the way that they used to make those albums.
Right, in a
studio. It took a year and $1 million versus us.
Take over the plant.
Exactly.
We sit in our studio and make our stuff. I mean, the new MX-80 took a few years to put together, but we just went in and just did it.
Yeah, but nowadays you can have the equipment in your home and it doesn't even cost that much to do it. But I mean, back then, even 30 years ago, you were lucky to have one of those little Tascams that took the cassette in it. I mean, those were kind of expensive, I remember. If you had one, you were like, "Ooh, you've got a Porta-Studio."
Yeah, we can do things out on cassette from one of those.
Yeah, I could theoretically record an album with just this thing I carry around in a box in my car now. I mean, things, and the whole downloading thing is really between that and look, the camera on my phone is better than the Pentax SLR camera that I had as a teenager.
Right.
And this thing takes better movies than the Super 8 camera that I used to have. Now, I may prefer the way film looks, but quality-wise, here it is. If things have changed so much, from the days when all I wanted most was just a tape recorder, and now I've got one on my iPod.
Although that Sony mono recorder that you have a picture of
Right.
in your app, that actually I've got like a lot of recordings of our rehearsals that was recorded on one of those, and a couple of the cuts actually made it onto bigger hits when they released the Heart Attack with the bonus album. And like it had a pretty darn good sound.
All right, well, I think we've reached just about the hour point. What have I not covered?
New record. Exciting new record.
Has it come out yet, or is it coming out?
It's out. I have a copy for you.
Oh, good.
Some
Which
other
one?
copy.
Because I have most of them.
You can't play it on your iPad, though. You gotta actually have it.
Oh,
controller.
I'll put it on my
No,
iTunes.
I have a CD. I brought you a CD.
Have a turntable anymore.
I'm really cool with the whole convenience thing, and at 56, my ears really aren't good enough to worry about whether it's a half-speed mastered anything. I'm perfectly okay with MP3s on my iPad.
Hey, if it's music, it sounds
Yeah.
good.
And, from someone who had a massive record collection and a massive book collection who had a hard time getting people to help him move, I mean, this is a godsend, really. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the best things about our history is that it tracks almost the whole history of recorded musical product. Except we didn't put out a 78. But we did everything else he did last century. Like you mentioned, the 4 tracks.
Let's put out a 78.
Well,
did that.
can I get a copy? Can I get a copy of your Edison cylinder?
Pre-19th century.
All right.
Pre-20th century.
All right. Although there is a website that has those stockpiled.
Right.
I got stuck there one day. I was just like, I wonder what Teddy Roosevelt's voice sounded like, and it turns out it's very high-pitched and not very masculine at all.
It may have been in person.
He was a true dude.
Yeah. But, I mean, I interviewed somebody just recently who grew up with a couple of wax cylinder players in their house.
Wow.
And I just said, man, I've always been fascinated by those things. And I know there's some people, collectors around, that actually have ones that still work. So you could do it.
We have a dictaphone recording.
Is that the one was on a wire?
No, that's like a red plastic loop.
Oh, that's right.
We used to use them a lot.
And what were the ones that used to be a wire? They used them for phone machines back in the 40s. They were literally like wire recorders that would record on a wire.
Oh, wow.
If you ever watch Kiss Me Deadly,
Oh, yeah.
he's got a phone machine like in 1953 or whenever it is, and if you look at it, it's a wire. It's literally like a guitar string that's looped on a reel, and that's what they would record their messages on. So new album is already out. What's it called?
So funny.
I don't have that one. The last one I have was We're an American Band.
Oh, that's good too.
Well,
Funny is nice too because you can listen to it all on YouTube as well.
And Dale's son plays drums.
That's what I heard. I should have asked about that. That's got to be kind of fun, isn't it?
It's great.
I was about to say, I mean, my dad would never play drums with me, but
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
it's kind of like seeing it loop back around, huh? Yeah, that's cool.
The swinging Sophias.
Yeah.
That's what I call them.
Now, I'll tell you a funny story real quick about We're an American Band. Is when I got it, I was like going, that's the same. Oh, I think it is the same song. And I flipped it over, and I'm like going, oh man, they're gonna shred the shit out of this one. Oh man, I can just hear his guitar. It's gonna come screaming out. And I popped that thing, and I'm like going, woo, rock me, baby, rock me. And I was like, oh man, what the hell's going on here? And then I realized, I was like, oh, they went the entire opposite direction.
Maybe some other time.
Well, no, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it for me particularly. But what I meant was it just showed that you still were surprising me by not meeting my expectations.
Thank you.
Well, one
Yeah.
of my friends said that, it was a testament to our artistic success that we did a better version than the original.
Well, the thing is I can imagine
Donnie Brewer,
I can imagine playing it at a party or something and pissing off at least some amount of people that went to high school
Yeah,
with me.
check out the YouTube video.
Yeah.
The comments.
Oh, really?
I haven't looked at
Split
that.
down the middle. Since it hits.
I might print some of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, worst thing ever. This is fantastic. I hate you.
And none of them were signed Mark Farner?
No, but Donnie Brewer, no.
Wow.
Dale went to high school with Donnie.
Yeah, he was in the
No,
same
no,
time I knew
just
him.
say you went
Yeah,
to-
I mean, I did. He actually did give me a boomerang once for. We went to a Christmas party. He gave me a boomerang for Christmas.
Was it a promotional boomerang for his
No, but
band?
Just, everybody had to bring a little Secret Santa.
Good story, Dale.
Thanks. I never learned how to use it, by the way.
All right, that concludes another episode of The Wrecking Yard. And again, I'd like to encourage you to go visit our website. I would like to encourage any and all people with deep pockets to throw some money my way so that I can travel to different cities and hassle different people. And once again, I would just like to say thank you for listening, and we're going to take this out with MX-80's version of We're an American Band.
Out on the road, 40 days. Last night in Little Rock put me in a haze. Sweet, sweet Connie doing her act. She had the whole show, and that's a natural fact. Playing all night with Freddie King. I gotta tell you that poker's his thing. Booze and ladies keep me right. As long as I can make it to the show tonight.
We're an American band. We're an American band. We come into your town. We'll help you party down.
4 young Chiquitas in Omaha, waiting for the band to return from the show. Feeling good, feeling right, it's Saturday night. The hotel detective is out of sight. Now these fine ladies, they had a plan. They was out to meet the boys in the band. They said, "Come on, dudes, let's get it on." And we proceeded to tear that hotel down.
We're an American